everyone, welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. Bit late the video today. Life's just got in the way, real life. So the diary of a YouTuber continues. Bit of a change to the regular programming. I'm going to bring forward my challenge from Blue Abroad, Terry Degani and Navy Blue Corner that wanted me to do the tier maker. So I've taken easy content. If you were on the members stream, I did do something very similar to this. So it's very similar. I've put a bit more thought into it. I was, obviously, like we say, we were doing that as a bit of fun. And we did that as a team exercise. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So here is the tier maker. And we're going to have a little bit of fun today. We're going to try and sort our way through what on earth we're doing with the Carlton thing. So what I'm looking at is 5 tiers. So I think tier 1, to just explain my thought process, it would be based on what we've seen thus far. Would they get into any 18 sides in the AFL? So I think that's, for me, that's what I would consider world class. Someone that would play pretty much every side in the comp. Tier 2, very good player. Tier 3, better than a squad player is what I'm calling it. So this is someone that I think you'd have to be very diligent to find a replacement of based on what we've seen. Tier 4, squad, role player. This could include players that haven't probably reached their ceiling yet, people that we're waiting to see. And tier 5 is the area where I would say that you can find someone. So you'd be able to find someone straight away. So let's get into it. So Harry Mackay, I think we'd all agree, is a tier 1. Is a tier 1. So I can't see anyone really disagreeing with that. But you never know, dear. You never know. So looking at that, Mitch McGovern, I would have this guy here tier 3 now. We had that as probably someone who's better than a squad player. I've got to take into account his injuries. Because I think that when you're a list manager, I'd imagine you look at it a little bit differently to like a YouTuber, or look at it differently to, say, a fan, that you're looking at it with an emotional attachment. If I was in Nick Austin's job, would I say at the moment he's make or break to us? Probably not, because he hasn't played enough to warrant it. When he does play, tier 2, maybe even, heaven forbid he stays fit long enough, tier 1. But in my opinion, I have to knock him for the injuries. I have to, because someone else has to do his job when he's not playing 20, 24 games, whatever it is a year. So I think that's fair. I think that that's probably, in my opinion, I think it's fair. Let me know in the comments if I'm not. Up next, this is probably going to cause a little bit of strife, but I'm having TDK in tier 4. Now, the reason is I think he did very well last year. He did very well. There's still, for me, a lot more levels to go. Now, what I mean by that is he ultimately replaceable? Now, tier 3, as we said, is somewhere where we'd have to put a bit of thought to replace him. Tier 4, we're talking, if it's potential, tier 2, tier 1. In reality, though, there's still a lot of work to be done. Now, he did very graciously last year, and we thank him for his service he threw in. I still think there is still massive holes in his game, which I think last year will benefit for. And I think we will see this guy at the end of the year be tier 2 or tier 1. So I'm very confident with where he is. This isn't a knock on him, but this is reality, where I think at this stage, he's not a tier 2, tier 1 player. In the grand scheme of the AFL, he's just a very reliable member of the squad. And there is ruckmen, in my opinion, that are far superior than him. So that's backed up statistically and, in my opinion, by the eye. Now, I know that might be harsh, but I'm looking at this tier as if we're going to win a flag. And he would be a guy that I really need to start seeing him doing his output. Blakers, for me, has proved that because of how we've targeted him, he's probably better than a role player. Now, he is a role player for us. He's going to be an incredible role player for Carlton, though, in the structure of things. So, for me, that is where I have him. Now, tier 4, I'm going to jump the gun a bit, and we're going to put the draftees in there, because it's unfair for me to have them any lower. But I think at the moment we have to look And we're going to have Lemmy, Binsey, Cowan, and Ollens, my boys, at tier 4. The reason being that they've just got to... We've got to wait and see, haven't we? Now, at the moment, I think they will play roles for us. Probably some more than others. I'm looking at Hollins and Cowan. Definitely will play in 2023. And Binsey definitely will get his opportunities. Lemmy probably will have the year to develop. But for me, my heart of hearts, that's where I have them. In tier 1, I think Doc. I think last year his return to form would be incredible. I would say he would be borderline all 18. Maybe some sides greater than others, but I think his experience, I think the way that he's come back and the numbers that he presented last year were very impressive. Is he back to his best? Probably not totally. I would expect to see another year into him, though. He will be very, very formidable and very raring to go. But for now, I've got him in there. Now, Jack Carroll is someone that I love a great deal, right? I love him a great deal. And I'm going to put him in tier 5, though, because now, tier 5, as we said, has to really improve, in my opinion, to stay on the list. He's now at that stage where he's been there enough that this year he needs to get into that tier 4 and be that squad player, be that rotation. I think it's very funny that not many pundits have talked about Jack Carroll as a Paddy Dow as a Sam Walsh replacement. And he's in that category with Paddy Dow, probably one of them guys that may get the opportunity, but people are looking elsewhere. Doc has been rotated into the midfield. Now, where Carroll is, in a top 30 pick, there will be a midfielder probably equal in that same category, is my point. Do I think he's going to make it? I really do hope so. I think that the small catchment we've had, we've seen his ceiling, we've seen his average, we've seen where he can stumble off. This year, for me, would be make or break in the terms of Carlton are in a position now where we can't keep keeping people with potential. We have to have a clear method to the first team and a clear line, in my opinion, of where to be, of where we're going to be and what it looks like for you to be a best 22, 23 player. So that's where I am. Now, I'm going to give someone a little bit of a cop-out based on that, and that's Brodie Kemp, tier 4. The reason being, I don't blame him for last year, because last year he was literally at the disposal of whoever got injured. So he started down back, went forward, ended up down back again, became a swingman, went back but down back, finished the year kind of as a back, and now he's back to be, in my position, my opinion, his best position. That is in that intercept. Now, I think the reason that he is being heralded as an intercept is a very obvious reason for me. Marchbank and McGovern. Someone has to cover that position, and I think now it's not a surprise that that is so important on Carlton's transition. So I'm willing to give him a break for some of the injuries, and then last year, the same with TDK. TDK took his opportunities and has shown that he's a reliable squad player. Now, tier 4 for me, I think is a very important position if you're under the age of 25, right? Because I think you have the ability to pummel out of there. Now, Sam Walsh, tier 1 for me, without a shadow of a doubt. And Corey Durden, tier 4. Sam Walsh, without a shadow of a doubt, one of Carlton's most talented players. Would definitely make the 18 of any side. Would be an acquisition. He's a franchise player, to use an NFL term. And the reason that I've got Corey Durden in tier 4 is merely a motivation factor for him. I think he's tier 1, potentially tier 2. And I think when him and Motlop work together, there is going to be a clear definition of where he is. I think he's an incredible footballer and got a high ceiling. I love what he does. Still, them few things, though, for me, for him to be a real important member of the team, has to iron up. But the signs are good. The signs are incredibly good, right? The signs are incredibly strong for Mr. Durden. And again, this is probably going to be controversial, but I'm going to put JSOS in tier 4 as a squad player. Now, the reason that I'm looking at this, and I don't want anyone to come and back me, because JSOS is someone that I love very, very dearly. The reason that I've got JSOS there is because I think he was the only high half forward, and there was taller players there, there was taller players on the list, that was deemed sufficient to play in the ruck, and he did an incredible job. However, I'd say that that year has cost him cementing that high half forward role. And this year, I think he's got more than enough talent to be tier 3. Very good player. At the moment, I think I've got to judge them on their best position and where they play best football. It's not sustainable having him as the second ruckman. I think that's obvious, and I think the club have made that obvious. For me, I want to see where his next level is. And I think this year, him and this gentleman here are both competing for that role. And I expect one of them to be tier 3. And you've got this catchment here. Jack Martin, probably on talent, can be a tier 2 player. I think we'd all be except tier 3, at best tier 2, is it. Now, I'm looking at Jack and I want him to be that 6, 7 out of 10 player. And that, for me, is where tier 3 is. 6.5, 7 out of 10 every game. Doing your job and not being a game winner. Jack Martin, I think, will have the 10 out of 10 games, will have the 5 out of 10 games. And if everyone plays their role with the natural development of Durden, and when we get to him, Motlop, I think it's important. But for me, that's where I got them. That's where I've got them. Now, I'm going to be maybe harsh, but Lockie Plowman, for me, is a guy that I think is disposable. Now, what I mean by that is if Marchbank and McGovern stay fit, he won't be on the list. With Cohen there. I think it's also at the stage now where Carlton will be looking at who is, if Kemp can stay fit, there's your replacement. You can have too many rotations, I think. And I think at the moment, Carlton have a lot of similar players because of the injuries and the crisis that has. And we'll do a video on that next week, definitely talking about it. A few of you asked. But for me, I see Plowman as that guy who is there, but he's there as a backup. And in an ideal world, we have a developing backup like Brodie Kemp who potentially can usurp them guys. And I would say that there would probably be a little bit of value in Plowman if we were to sell him. And I think if you can get a third for him, let's just say, something like that, I think Carlton would be open to it because I think you could bring in the development. Now, this is going to be harsh. I love Caleb, but I think Caleb's got to be tier 4. Again, because of injuries. Definitely a tier 2, maybe even a tier 1 footballer if he'd played. And I would say this is where I would have Curnow probably 2 years ago. There's still a jury still out on him. So I think definitely a tier 2, tier 1 footballer. But for me at the moment, that's where he is. Jacob Wheaterin would be a walk-up start, in my opinion, for 90% of the AFL lists. 90% of where it is. And I'm happy with that. Now, the two guys I'm going to put in tier 3 are Zach Fisher and Mr. Nick Newman. And I think Zach Fisher, for me, is the big developer. Because I think this time last year, I would have been questioning where he was. Was he a tier 4? Was he a tier 5? A lot of potential in him, but didn't quite do it. Shows what happens when a coach has faith in you. Definite tier 3 for me. A guy that he's going to be a squad player and also given a bit more of an output. And Nick Newman, what you see is what is on the tin with Nick Newman. And I think he doesn't get enough respect from the Carlton faithful because he's now going to be thrust into probably play 20 plus games. And I think his output is above what I would expect just someone plugging a hole. I think he's higher than that. Now, my first controversial selection is going to be Mark Pitternet in tier 2. Now, I have a lot of love for Mark Pitternet. Now, the reason I have him tier 2 is when he does play, there is no doubt what he does. He makes Carlton a better side. And I think that's important. I think he would as well be second ruckman for every AFL side but Melbourne, in my honest opinion. I think he would be the first. Now, the niggle he had last year, I don't blame him. Do you know what I mean at all? I can't blame him. That knock against Darcy was woeful. It's got no place in it. But for me, that is where I have him. And I'm willing to die on that hill. I give him a lot of love. Now, I expect in an ideal world, Mark Pitternet comes down to tier 3. TDK comes to tier 2. We sign him. And there's no doubt, and I don't have a doubt in my mind that could happen. But for me, as it stands at the moment, we have to be realistic with the 9th best side in the comp. There's a reason. Now, Connors, tier 5. And I'm sick of talking about Cunningham because I just want him to do it. And this is a reflection of I'm sick of hearing about potential. And he's now mid-20s. So he should be at least tier 4. He's always getting injured. There's no doubt when he plays, he's probably a tier 2 player if he'd played 2 seasons since the last major injury. But for me at the moment, he's another guy that if I'm Nick Austin, I'm thinking, do I continue with you? Or can I find someone pick 30? Look at Cowan. You can find players who are ready now. There. Why keep him? It's going to be cheaper because he's getting to that age. There is a surcharge you have to play because of age. So for me, that's where he is. George Hewitt, Tier 2. Now, he is a Tier 1 footballer in terms of structure to this football club. Without a shadow of a doubt. Well, that's not what this tier is. This is about grading them on the AFL. I think there's players that do the same thing, probably better at other clubs. Got the injury as well. If he'd probably not been injured, he would have been a Tier 1. I would have said he would have probably been close to All-Australian. Incredibly important to our setup, though. And that's what Tier 2 for me means. And I think when he's a full year, it's there. It's there. Paddy Dow, Tier 5. What more can be said, really, about Paddy Dow? And this isn't a reflection of him. If we were picking players on VFL, Tier 1. But at the moment, it's obvious where Voss is. There's a lot of work to be done on his game defensively. And I feel that's where Paddy Dow is. That's where Paddy Dow is. And I would say if he hasn't played 10 AFL games, and that is, for me, the pass mark to get a contract, it's time to cut your ties. It's fairer on him at his age, fairer on the club as well. Now, Tier 1, straight away. We don't even need to talk about Curnow, but I can't believe anyone doesn't have him Tier 1. Has to be Tier 1 for me. Has to be Tier 1. Lewis Young, Tier 3. We'll talk a bit more about Curnow. He's the best player in the competition. He wouldn't just be in every 18 clubs. He would be the captain of every 18 clubs. We've just got Cripps. There, said it. Tier 3, Lewis Young, been a very important squad player. And I think there's a Tier 2 there. And I stand by this. I think Carlton potentially do have the best 2 key defenders by the end of 2023 in the comp. Phil P and Ed and Hewitt and Honey, I'm putting Tier 5. Now, we're going to go reverse order. Josh Honey, one of my favourite footballers, a guy that I have a huge respect for, has to break in. He will be looking at J Sauce and Jack Martin and has to push them. He is in a position that's one of the easiest positions to find a draftee. And that has to come into it eventually. How long do you keep these players on there? He's a go player. Someone that I'm willing to give a bit of time for. And another guy that I'm putting in Tier 5 is Jordan Boyd. Very good when he plays. Few niggles. And again, this is where Carlton have got to look and go, can Boyd go up? You know what? Actually, it's a bit harsh. Tier 4. We'll put him in Tier 4. Tier 4. He's definitely got to get fit. Definitely got to start breaking in. At the moment, a role player, a rotation. Sam Durden, Tier 5. Now, he's going to be backup. For me, he's definitely backup. Heaven forbid. Probably based on the depth, he's probably Tier 4. But I think, in reality, for skill level, that's where he is. Now, Jesse Motlop, I'm having here in Tier 3. Now, the reason why, I think he's shown enough, particularly the last few games he played once he broke in. He is an X-Factor player. He does the defensive. Tackles per minute, the same as always. So that defensive pressure and the fact he likes a snag, for me, gives him that extra over Durden, who is more that defensive-based player. I'm very impressed about him, and I'm very bullish. Dom, I'm going to have him Tier 4, and I think Dom is definitely in that category with these guys. Do you know what I mean? With Durden, he maybe makes him Tier 5, because if there's enough development there, particularly now he's playing forward as well, there may be a great argument that he gets a year depending on how he develops, but he's a wait and see for me, someone that I'm expecting to break in. And Jack Martin will definitely be one of them guys, should he do that, where you could see him in Tier 5. Carlton cut their losses. Say J-Sauce really does cement that role, which I suspect he will. Josh Honey comes out of that Tier 5. Suddenly there's an opportunity, but he's someone that does need a bit more time with him being a Cat B, and I'm willing to give it. Adam Sard, Tier 1 for me. I think last year he would have made every 18, and I think the question marks that opposition fans had defensively has been answered, and certainly he's enjoying his footy in his Tier 1 based on what his offence brings. Tier 4, Matty Owens, again, a squad player. And I think it now, Murkoff is definitely Tier 5. With the signing of Hudson and O'Keefe, now Carlton have got 2 developing ruckmen. O'Keefe is a better ruckman already than Murkoff. Murkoff's coming behind the 8 ball. Carlton, if they have an opportunity to sign a senior ruckman next year, say a Darcy comes available, for me, that's where it is. Now, in at Tier 4, with these, I'm going to have both of our wingmen. Now, I think, looking at the rotation, looking that we've got a recognised wingman who plays defensive and keeps his width, Blake Acres is Tier 3. The fact that we've rotated Chera and Walsh on that wing, I think that Cottrell is going to get Tier 3 at the end of the year because he's going to do a Fisher. He's going to play on that high half forward along with Fisher. I think that will be where the role goes. I think at the moment, both of them have upside. Both of them played a full game, which is a huge improvement. Because if they'd done what they've done usually, they would be Tier 5 in my opinion. They are now bona fide squad players. For me, we need at least 4 of these players to get into Tier 3 to make finals. If we're going to win flags, a couple of them Tier 3s need to get to Tier 2. 6 of Tier 4 need to get in Tier 3. Chera, I think he redeemed himself in the back end. But for me, Tier 2 footballer. Tier 2 footballer. Has a ceiling of a Tier 1. Interesting. It took him a while to get used to Sam Walsh. And Sam Walsh is definitely ahead of him in terms of what Carlton's output has been. Very solid start though. Tier 4. I'm going to put Zach Williams. Now, this is harsh. He had the ACL. It's not his fault. But at the moment, again, C. McGovern. And it's probably harsh. He's probably Tier 3. But I just think he's got less credits in the bank. The fact that we can accommodate this injury because of Newman. Players like that. McGovern, we really did see a massive change in Carlton's output. Tier 2, Matt Kennedy. Was Tier 3 squad role player last year. Now he's a very important player. And to be Tier 1, I think your numbers have got to be insane. And I think it's hard to be a Tier 1 mid if you're not the first, second choice, in my opinion. Very good. Borderline Tier 1. Borderline Tier 1. Him and Hewitt, I will be looking at this year. Fogg, Tier 5. Why is he there? Again, you can find a kid to do the role. Cripper, Captain Courageous. I'm going to just put this in order of Pom's undying love. It's going to upset a few people. There you are. But Cripper, Captain Courageous, return to form. Thank God we've seen it. But that is my tier maker. I am more than happy. I reckon there'll be some people unhappy. But make sure you like and subscribe the video. Thank you very much to Terry and Navy Blue Corner. Check their videos out. They were very good. Bit different to mine. I've been a little bit harsh. I'd love to hear your tiers as well. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed. If you want to become a member, we're doing a giveaway. I will announce that on Monday. All members go into the draw for that for the members live stream. We'll be doing some lives next week as well. The return of the live shows. We've got a special one coming up as well. You'll find out when that happens. But much love. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you have a fantastic time. And whatever you're doing, stay safe.